what's going on out there? Sean Devine, and today I've got a video that was by request. Someone wanted me to show my top 10 plugin instruments for producers. So I wanted to share with you the 10 instruments that if I only had these are the ones that I would want to have in my arsenal. I use them in probably 90% of my productions. And if you have these, you really don't need much else. Obviously, there's a lot of other ones out there, but these are the ones that I really gravitate towards the most. And so I wanted to share them with you in hopes that maybe if you all are trying to make some selections on your instrument purchases, this might help you out and just show you why I'm using these tools for certain things and why I prefer some of them to others. So anyways, let's jump right in. The first instrument we have here is Nerve. This is by X4 Records, and it's a drum machine, but also a loop player. You can also program your own drum sounds, do a lot of different effects and things to edit your drum sounds. So if you're interested in sound design, it's got a lot of really cool features in terms of effects. Now, one of the main reasons why I use Nerve is because I'm not using FL Studio. So in Logic, there's not really an incredibly easy way to manage loops and to kind of tempo sync loops within your project. I think FL probably has the best implementation of this for producers, but Nerve definitely solves the issue if you're not an FL Studio user, because you can basically just drag in loops and then it automatically slices your loop up and then it will play it back sync to tempo. And if you're worried about, changing pitch or anything like that, you can actually adjust. So it doesn't actually affect the pitch. It's a really flexible plugin, and that's really the main reason why I use Nerve is for handling my loops. You can also rearrange your loops very easily. So just chopping things up is very easy. But just, again, if you also want to use it as a drum machine, you've got 16 pads. You can use them just like you would, any other drum machine. And you can actually create slices out of your loops. Do all kinds of really, really cool things. So again, if you're interested in this, check out x4records.com. They also make Serum, which I'm going to go through next. But this is just a absolute must-have plugin for me. So next, Serum. Obviously, I just put out a synth preset bank called Urban Dreamscapes. If you're interested, go to seandevine.com and you can hear a lot of what this synth is capable of and what I have in that library. But obviously, the reason why I've chosen this is because this is a relatively new synth, but it's already made its way into so many of my productions because it sounds really great. It's easy on the eyes. That seems like a kind of a trivial thing, but when you're looking at something and you're turning these knobs and really trying to dial into things, it helps if it's just easy to look at. And so this one is definitely one of the better looking synths. It also just has a really good workflow. It's well designed. I can get around it really easily, and I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time digging and trying to figure out what things do and going through menus. It's just a great synth, and again, the proof is really in the musicality and how it fits in the mix. So if you're looking for a software synthesizer that is just really a Swiss Army knife of some sorts that you can create all kinds of different sounds, arpeggios, all that type of stuff, this is one that I would definitely consider. So moving on to the next one, this one is deemed the power synth, Omnisphere, for good reason. It is capable of probably the most wide range of sounds in terms of a software synthesizer. You have the advantage of being able to not only use synths, oscillators, but you can also mix them with samples, and it includes an absolutely massive library of different samples, everything from acoustic instruments to just odd like pianos on fire, really weird sources that they recorded, and you mix those in with your synth oscillators. So it also has a great effects section, arpeggio. You've also got some unique synthesis types like granular synthesis. You can use that, which again, if you're doing like soundtrack type of stuff, you can get some crazy sounds in this. But really, it's not just a compositional kind of synth. I mean, you can make super modern sounding like pop sounds or whatever you're trying to do. The possibilities are absolutely endless with Omnisphere. So highly recommend that. I use it in a lot of my tracks, and it's just a very inspiring source for synth sounds. Now let's move on to Kontakt 5. Couldn't go without this one. Let me just say first that a lot of people ask me what libraries I use in Kontakt. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that most of the libraries in the factory for Kontakt I think are not great. I've never found them to be very inspiring. But some of the third-party stuff and even the extra banks that Native Instruments sells outside of the factory library, like for instance Session Strings, really good library. Session Horns is great. The 60s Drummer is a good one. I use Studio Drummer for realistic kind of acoustic drum sounds. Vintage Organs is probably the best organ kind of instrument that I've come across. So there's some good stuff in the actual Native Instruments library outside of the factory library. This factory library, I mean, it's really just kind of a bread and butter. I can't even tell you if I've ever used it. So don't get too excited just basing Kontakt off of the factory library. Now, I have a lot of third-party libraries. So I have various custom pianos, some really good sounding pianos that you're not going to be able to get within the factory Kontakt sounds. But once you get them loaded in, you really learn that it's all about the sample libraries with Kontakt, and there's some amazing ones available. So moving on, Nexus 2. Now, a lot of people are a little weird about Nexus because it's called a rompler, meaning that you're not actually synthesizing, you're using samples that are included. And then you can tweak them and add effects, but there's a lot of control under the hood with Nexus that I don't think people realize or just don't consider it a real synth because of the fact that it uses these samples, but it sounds phenomenal. And you have libraries that span all over the spectrum in terms of style. Now, a lot of people ask me what expansions should you get for Nexus. I'm going to be honest with you and tell you I haven't bought a Nexus library or expansion in a long time, mainly because it's centered around EDM. And it's not because I don't like EDM or I don't produce EDM. It's just a lot of those sounds are just kind of like recycled. I mean, how many EDM banks do you need? And if you have something like Serum or Omnisphere, you can create all those sounds with those synths. So I don't need them for Nexus. Now, obviously, if you don't create your own sounds or you're not really into the sound design side of things and you just want to pull up great sounds fast, Nexus is definitely the go-to for that. But I would recommend checking out the older expansion packs. Some of the trance ones, Analog is a really great expansion. Hollywood, all the Hollywood series, I mean, Hollywood Strings, Hollywood Synth, those are great for just epic kind of movie feel soundtrack type of sounds. And also you can use them in hip hop. Obviously there's some great brass sounds in there. And then there's just some cool electronic stuff. Again, I don't really use a lot of the expansions. I just have a couple of patches in here that are like my go-tos, and some of them would be in the Hollywood library. But Nexus is amazing if you're just trying to pull up a sound really quick and you don't want to worry about necessarily doing sound design at that point. Moving on to another drum machine, Battery 4. I mean, just a go-to. I had Battery 3, used it for a really long time. And the reason why I use this in addition to Nerve is because I feel like Nerve is better for handling loops, chopping up loops. And then Battery is really great for actually layering and processing your drum samples. So if I want to like map, 4 different kick samples to the same pad and then go down here and, EQ them accordingly, or whatever it is that I need to do with them. You just have a lot of control. You also have a pretty good effects section and just some nice kind of stock reverbs to go along with it. So I'm just really used to using battery, and we'll continue to use that as the main source of laying down drum patterns. Next one is Legacy Cell. This is by Korg. This is a really old plugin. I'm pretty sure that they're still selling it, but I can't even remember how long ago I got this plugin. But it gives you the ability to use an MS-20, a digital version of the MS-20, which is a famous Korg synthesizer. And you also get the ability to use the Poly 6. So you can pull up a Poly 6 on one of these channels as well. And then you can combine them and turn them into a patch, and then use 2 different insert effects. It's just really powerful. You've also got master effects. And so you can get some great old vintage Korg sounds out of Legacy Cell. All right, so next on the list is Ultra Analog. I'm a little bit biased with this one because I have programmed a lot of sounds with it. I also have 2 commercially available sound banks for it with Applied Acoustic Systems. You can check both of those out. They're called Reverence and Low End Theory, and they're available on applied-acoustics.com. So anyway, I had a really good time programming with this synth, and I also just think it has a very unique character to it. You know, a lot of people are looking for that analog sound in the digital realm, and I feel like this one gives you a great perspective of that, and it just has a lot of kind of like quirky imperfections about it in terms of the sound, that's what analog is just these things that happen that are not quite expected. So you can get some really cool results with it, and again, it's just a very musical instrument in the same way that Serum is, in a different kind of sound sense, but Ultra Analog fits really well in the mix. I've used it in a lot of my productions. It's great for pads, it's great for leads, it's really versatile, and it takes a little bit more time getting used to in terms of programming, but once you get a feel for it, it's very straightforward, and again, it just sounds really, really good. Great effects section, so be sure to check that out. Next one, this is just Massive has been around for a really long time, and it's stood the test of time. It's still making really modern sounds, you know, even 10, 15 years later. I think it was probably released that long ago. And it's relatively easy to program, and it's very flexible in terms of its routing capabilities. So, and it sounds really good too. You can do ARPs and all kinds of cool things with it. And the other reason that I chose it for this list is because Massive has a ton of presets available. So if you're not into sound design and you're just looking to pull up really good sounds quickly, get Massive, and then you can go out and look for, you know, either free preset banks or commercial ones that you can buy, and then just plug them into Massive, and there's a ton of sounds out there that cover, you know, pretty much anything that you could possibly need. So that's a good one just to get inspired quickly with. All right, and last but certainly not least is Isotope's Break Tweaker. Some of you may not be familiar with this one. I don't use it in all of my sessions. I don't use it in all of my productions, but to me it's absolutely indispensable because there's nothing that does what Break Tweaker does. You can do all these really crazy micro edits with drum patterns, and you can also program drum samples in a way that you can't do in other plugins. Also, the effects section is really interesting, the distortions and things that you can do on the drums. You can edit a lot of your patterns according to pitch, these micro edits, and just crazy time divisions that you would not be able to do unless you had a lot of time on your hands. So I use that for really like glitchy kind of breaks and just making drum patterns that are not so conventional. So that's a really cool one to check out. But that's it, guys. Those are 10 plugin instruments for producers, and these are the ones that again land in my sessions all the time. I'm constantly using them. And if you told me I could only have 10 for the next 5 years, I would pick these, and I think I would be more than set in terms of the sounds needed there. So I hope this helps y'all in your plugin purchases. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I will have also a video for the top 10 audio effects plugins for mixing coming up, as well as some other top 10. So if you want to see some other things I'm using in mixing or sound design or production, feel free to let me know, and we'll talk to you soon.